Japan's Sanae Takaichi is proving a surprisingly popular prime minister, confounding early skepticism from critics who once portrayed her as a polarizing ideologue and instead revealing a leader who has managed to blend ideological clarity with political pragmatism in a way that resonates with a broad swath of the Japanese public, as her rise to the top job has unfolded against a backdrop of economic anxiety, regional insecurity, and voter fatigue with cautious incrementalism, conditions that have allowed Takaichi to reframe her long-held conservative views as a form of decisiveness rather than rigidity. Long associated with the hawkish wing of Japanese politics, she entered office with a reputation for tough stances on national security, constitutional revision, and economic sovereignty. Yet what has surprised observers is how she has paired those themes with a disciplined message of stability and competence, emphasizing predictability in governance while projecting resolve abroad, a combination that has reassured business leaders worried about global volatility and voters concerned about Japan's ability to navigate an increasingly fragmented international order. Economically, Takaichi has leaned into a narrative of strategic growth, arguing that Japan can no longer rely solely on monetary easing and export demand but must actively rebuild domestic industrial strength, protect critical technologies, and support middle-class households facing rising costs. And while some of her proposals echo long-standing conservative preferences for industrial policy and fiscal activism, her careful sequencing of reforms and willingness to consult technocrats has softened fears of reckless spending or abrupt shocks. At the same time, she has shown an instinctive understanding of political communication, speaking in plain, assertive language that contrasts with the technocratic vagueness many voters have come to associate with establishment politics, and this rhetorical clarity has helped her claim ownership of difficult trade-offs, from defense spending increases to energy security decisions, rather than allowing opponents to define them as imposed sacrifices. On foreign policy, Takaichi's popularity has been buoyed by a sense that she means what she says, particularly in her emphasis on strengthening deterrence, deepening alliances with the United States and like-minded partners, and articulating Japan's role as a proactive shaper of regional stability rather than a passive beneficiary of other security guarantees, a posture that has found growing acceptance among a public increasingly aware of tensions in East Asia and wary of complacency. Crucially, she has avoided the trap of framing these issues in purely ideological terms, instead linking them to everyday concerns such as supply chain resilience, maritime trade, and the protection of Japanese citizens and businesses overseas, thereby grounding abstract security debates in tangible outcomes. Domestically, Takaichi has also benefited from a reputation for administrative toughness, pushing ministries to set measurable targets and publicly tracking progress in a way that signals accountability. And while such an approach has inevitably created friction within the bureaucracy, it has reinforced her image as a leader willing to challenge institutional inertia, a quality that resonates with voters frustrated by slow policy execution. Her handling of social issues has likewise defied simple categorization, as she has maintained conservative positions on national identity and tradition while adopting a more pragmatic tone on workforce participation, childcare support, and regional revitalization, framing these not as ideological concessions but as necessary investments in national resilience, a reframing that has allowed her to broaden appeal without alienating her core supporters. Opposition parties, meanwhile, have struggled to land effective attacks, in part because Takaichi has preemptively acknowledged risks and uncertainties in her agenda, presenting herself as realistic rather than dogmatic, and in part because her government has avoided major scandals, depriving critics of the kind of narrative accelerants that often drive rapid approval swings in Japanese politics. Media coverage, initially cautious, has increasingly noted the gap between expectations and outcomes, highlighting steady approval ratings and relatively high trust in her leadership during crises, which in turn has created a feedback loop reinforcing perceptions of competence. Perhaps most importantly, Takaichi's popularity reflects a broader shift in voter psychology, as years of global shocks, from pandemics to geopolitical conflicts, have heightened demand for leaders who project conviction and preparedness, even if they challenge long-standing taboos, and in this context her assertive style feels less radical than timely. None of this suggests her position is unassailable, as difficult fiscal choices, demographic pressures, and external shocks will continue to test her coalition, and Japan's political landscape remains notoriously unforgiving. But for now, Sanae Takaichi's tenure illustrates how a leader once viewed as an outlier can, under the right conditions and with disciplined execution, redefine herself as a credible, even reassuring, prime minister. turning perceived liabilities into sources of strength and reshaping assumptions about what kind of leadership Japanese voters are willing to embrace.